Hello, good evening. This is Christy with Tedesura Studio, and I am coming on here after thinking about making this video for about 2 years. And this is to be the introductory video to a playlist that I was originally going to call 2 years ago, Becoming Tedesura. And there are 5 existing videos that are already part of that playlist. And initially I had this notion that I wanted to create a playlist that would document and share insights that had been gleaned from what I was undergoing at that point in time, which I classified for myself as a healing journey. And my initial intention was very wholesome, very well intentioned, to help other people with what I was learning. But what I ultimately discovered was that by episode 5, by talking about my journey with others and by sharing about it, I was compromising the integrity of that journey. Because at that point in my life, what I was setting out on was in fact, I guess what some people would call a dark night of the soul. I kind of steer clear of terminology like that because I think it's been overused and everyone has kind of this idea of what they think that means now, right? So that they automatically jump to when they hear that phrase. So I want to steer clear of that because I'm more interested in talking about the essence of things than what they're called, okay? And so what this will be now is a very heartfelt, very authentic recounting of some things that I've gleaned along the way, yes, but from a very different place, from one of, like this morning I woke up, and even though I've been thinking about making this video for a couple of years, I woke up and it was like, today is the day that I create access, that I need to create access to what I've experienced. For other people who are on a similar path, who are also my fellow travelers, to know that you're not alone. That what is a very isolating journey to the center of the self, that there are other people who have done it and who are doing it in a very authentic, very, very, very private way, right? And that's the other piece of this, is, as I was mentioning, by episode 5 of these previous videos that I had made, and it's funny watching them now because I'm so lighthearted. Like, I was studying a lot of Carolyn Mace at that point and a few other teachers, and it's obvious that I was learning a lot, but I hadn't really integrated it. And so it's very cerebral, and not so much felt or embodied experience yet, right? And I can speak from that place now, from the place of someone who has embodied and experienced with my whole being a transformation. And I steer clear of that word now too, because it's, once again, so overused, right? And rediscovering my own wholeness and remembering who I am and all these things. But that is what happened for me. That is what happened for me. And there's a lot of talk out there right now about what it is to remember, or remembering who we are and all this kind of stuff, but nobody ever really talks about what that consists of. And so that's what this will be. And at the point when I undertook this journey 2 years ago, I was living a life in quiet desperation. From the outside looking in, I had a home, I was in a relationship, I had a full-time job, I had animals, there were aspects of my life that were presumably fulfilling, right? But I woke up most mornings feeling like I was about to drown. Like just up to here, and feeling like I wanted to either sleep forever or scream, and so there was a big part of me that was in silent desperation and asleep at the wheel. And I went to an ecstatic dance retreat, and I discovered since then, it's not so much the modality, it's not so much what it was the timing of it, and also I was able to connect with an energy, with a very powerful energetic connection with myself that weekend, that changed everything, that woke me up. And it was as if a giant hand just reached down and yanked me out of the life that I'd been living, and plopped me down into a very mysterious abyss where I didn't really know which way was up, but I knew that I had to move forward and begin following this thread that stretched out in front of me. And I felt that I was being asked the question at that point in time, are you willing to risk the life that you've been living for the one that you could live, or the one that you have the potential to live? And so that's the question. Are you willing to risk the life that you've been living for the one that you could live? And I said yes to that. And at the time, it's funny, especially if you watch the first video in the series, it's the one where I'm wearing the Namaste hat and talking a lot about birds, if you wind up watching that. And bless her heart, that version of me is so lighthearted and really has no idea what in the hell she's in for. But when I watch it, I'm just kind of going, wow, like how much has changed in that period of time. And just to give you a sense, at that point in time, like I said, I was working a full-time job. I was in software development. I was in a 7-year relationship. I had been living for about 5 years in a little town, good community, good friends. And that spring, everything shifted. And I set out on what could only be classified as a journey to remember. And one of my favorite teachers talks about how, we're dropped into this suit. We're a soul that gets a body. We get assigned a body, right, for this iteration anyway. And so as we go through life over the course of time, we forget what that suit contains. We assemble a personality, and we acquire all of these personality traits and all of these things that are who we are, based on some egoic notion of whatever that is. And over time, we forget what that suit contains. And from that point on, then we are on a journey to remember. And so what happened that weekend was I just barely touched the essence of who I really was at that point in time, of who I really am, right? I touched wholeness. And then there was no going back. There was not once I saw it, there was no unseeing it, right? And it wasn't even really an option to stay in the same situation. Things had to shift. And I recognized that there was an absolute magic undercurrent driving all of life, that what we see in front of us is just a tiny piece of what there is. So I set out on a journey, and at that point in time, that very first year, I would just tell people, began traveling a lot, that I was doing my best to live life with no agenda, and to just listen and live life with no agenda. And there were people who really understood that, and other people who really, really, really didn't. And as I was traveling, I made all kinds of connections that I now know were not coincidences. Like we meet exactly the people we are meant to meet, and perhaps you're finding this video at exactly the time when you need to find it, when we really need it, when we really need to find those people. And this is the amazing jigsaw puzzle of this life coming together in mysterious ways. And but parts of my life began falling away. Anything that wasn't in alignment began to fall away on its own. It wasn't me, consciously rejecting people or rejecting aspects of my life. It was just that they were simply not in alignment with the direction that I was heading. And it was really isolating, and it was really hard, and it was at times really heartbreaking, and constant sort of attacks on the ego, in the sense that there were people who made judgments about me, and who said unkind things, and who made assumptions, and people who I thought were my friends, and part of that was they were being fed information about me that wasn't accurate, by others, right? And that's going to happen. So that's the other piece of this is there's a lot of talk out there about the healing journey and dark night of the soul, and journey to remember even, and remembering who we are, but nobody really talks about the price that you pay for that. And there is a price to be paid for that. But ultimately, it's not if I shouldn't say if, when you lose people, it's not a loss. It is realignment, and it is the creation of spaciousness. As one of my favorite teachers says, you must empty your vessel so grace can fill you. And that is what it comes down to. And so I set out on this journey, and knowing that I was being willfully misunderstood by a lot of people who I had previously been in close proximity to. I'd been close with these folks, but it was what I had to do. It wasn't an option to do otherwise. And that's the other piece of this too, is just remembering that I think all of us have within us this capacity. We're just at different places on the journey, and so even while there are people who may be not understanding you or judging you, or where those dynamics become very difficult, you are a mirror for other people's secret dreams and fears. That's just what happens. And so there will be people who are triggered by what you're doing, but there will also be people who are very inspired by it, and who you affect in the most positive of ways, right? And don't, I would say, don't try to do that, right? Like with this little series of videos I was gonna do, where I was thinking, oh, I'm gonna inspire people to be their best selves, and very, very honorable intentions, past self, Christy. However, ultimately, everyone is on their own journey, and ultimately, as I mentioned at the very beginning of this, I began to realize that by the 5th video, I was in the position of storyteller, and I was finding myself, I would be recounting, the place that I was at in my journey, and wanting to share about that, but I would feel like I needed to curate aspects of it so that other people could understand, or so that what I was saying made sense, right? And so in so doing, I was reshaping that experience for myself, and reshaping, changing the options that were laid out in front of me, right? Potentially changing the trajectory of my path by sharing about it with others, and then exposing it to validation or a lack of validation, or their criticism, whatever it may be. Even asking for feedback, or asking other people who were not on this kind of a journey what they thought. That was also pretty dangerous, actually. If I was taking the integrity of this path seriously, I couldn't afford an ill-informed perspective, right? Couldn't afford it. And the other piece of this too is just from a purely brain science perspective. When we give words to something, right, that is a whole being experience, so mind, body, heart, spirit, multi-sensory experience, when we're just assigning these tiny, these words, which just comes from a tiny part of our brain, that changes that experience for us too, and it changes the way we remember it, and therefore it changes potentially the decisions we might make, and the way that journey unfolds for us down the road. And I couldn't afford it. It was too important. It was too important that I stay in integrity with the innermost parts of myself, that my most, at that point in time, the most secret parts of me, right? That were even a secret unto me. That I allow things to unfold, and trust that they would unfold. So I basically disappeared. And that's why I say, there were people that I think just made stuff up. I'm not really sure, but there were a lot of people who came away with the impression that I was just off traveling and partying and having a good time, and leaving other people in my life behind and all this. And no, in fact, that first year especially was absolute hell. It was the hardest year of my life, and I was all by myself. I chose to be by myself, right? Because there's not really any way to do that with someone else, and that's a challenge. I had the luxury of being by myself, right? If people, my heart really goes out to people who kind of have this where they touch wholeness, but they're in a partnership and they want to maintain the partnership, and so then they really are in a position of, well, how do I navigate this? And there are ways to do that, right? And I'm going to talk more about that in this series, because I've learned a lot in this walk, and that's why I'm here now, is coming from a much more heartfelt, much more lived experience kind of place. And I've got enough homeostasis in my own journey now where I'm not compromising the integrity of my path by sharing about these early days. And I'm not going to really necessarily talk about this in chronological order either. There will be, some things that feel like they want to come through, and I might share about them even if they just occurred to me last week, But this is all going to be about the process of transformation and what it is to align all of these aspects of ourselves, mind, heart, body, spirit, and then activate the truth of who we are and live and express from that place. What does that look like, right? And there were so many times in these past 2 years when I really wished that I could find somebody who understood, who really seemed like they understood from a very real place what the journey was. And so that's what I'm endeavoring to do here, is just to be kind of a lighthouse, in the sense that not that you should follow my path by any means. You have your thread to follow. You need to follow your thread. You need to find your thread and follow your thread. And just as I've done that with mine. But just in the sense that you're not alone, and that other people are also traveling and also undertaking what is the most important journey that you will ever take, which is to the center of yourself, so that you can find and generate within yourself the love that we are all unfortunately taught to seek outside of ourselves. And that is, spoiler alert, ultimately what you will find is that beneath all of the layers, beneath all of the fear and the grief and the pain and the sadness and the anger, is love. That is the essence of who you are. And it's a matter of feeling into that place and then living from that place, no matter what. Another spoiler is that ultimately this thread that you're following, that you think leads outside of you, leads somewhere into the distance, into a future version of you, a future life, a better version. Instead, I would advise you to seek your favorite version of yourself. The version of you that is the most lovable, delightfully flawed, and the most lovable. And you will find that the thread that you are following is one infinite glowing loop, and it reaches straight back to you. You are who you've been waiting for, and you are who you are traveling towards. And there's not really anything else beyond that. And that's not coming from a place of selfishness. Once you're able to generate within yourself this sense of pure, abundant love, then there's so much overflow. Everyone around you benefits, and you can endeavor things. You are willing to take risks in the name of love that you would never be able to do from any other place within yourself. So I want to share this. It's time to share. It's time to put this out there. And these are going to be very, very authentic, very unedited. I'm not going to, I teared up just now with the emotion of it. I'm not going to edit stuff like that out, because I want you to feel the authenticity of this in its purest form. And so some of these might come across as sort of rambles, but just know that that when I'm sharing, it is with the belief that the people who need to hear it are going to come across it, and that we all just need to keep going, and what you need will be provided for you. And even things that seem hard in the moment, that seem like heartbreak, there is a reason why you're coming up against that, why you're confronting that, why that is in your path, and so having the utmost trust, being willing to, as I said, to live life with no agenda, in the sense that you are listening right? Like you're obviously making decisions. You have to, we're given a body, we live in this 3D world, right? So you have to pay the bills, you have to pay taxes, things like this. Keep living your life, but listen with as much of yourself as you possibly can, to the guidance, and it will be there. It will be there. And so I'm gonna keep sharing about this. I'm gonna release those 5 videos that I keep laughingly referencing, and more just as a point of novelty than anything. You know, I mean, I have good things to say in those videos, but it's just from such a different place. And then as we go, you know, I'll share things that feel like they want to come through. I may or may not engage in the comments. Like if I share things and you're not in agreement, then that's fine. But I'm not really going to argue with you about who's right or whose perspective is correct or anything like that. Like, I'm not interested in that. Like, if it doesn't resonate with you, then just move on. You know, and if it does, then I'm glad. And that is the reason why I'm doing this, is because I don't, I want to make sure that there's something out there for people who are looking for, I guess, how do I want to phrase this? Just an assurance that you're not the only one who's going through this, that there are others. And that there seems to be kind of almost a collective, I don't know if I want to call it an awakening, but kind of, where a lot of people are sort of poking their heads up and kind of going, okay, what else is there? What am I actually supposed to be doing here? And so this is intended to give some guidance on that. But just from my perspective, sharing my experience, if it is helpful at all. So it's one of the most vulnerable things I've ever done. And the internet can be a very trolly, bullying place, but I'm doing it anyway, because I believe so strongly that it is this kind of share that is asked of me at this point in time. And so I'm rising to the challenge of that, and showing up for you, whoever you are. So much love, and more to come on this point. And I'll release those. I feel like it's like what is it, Pirates of the Caribbean? Release the Kraken, you know, something like that. Like, is that Pirates of the Caribbean? I don't know if it is. Anyway, so I'm going to release those videos and we'll get started with this. But this is the introductory kind of kickoff. I don't know what I'm going to call the playlist in lieu of Becoming Tedesura. I take issue with the term becoming now for various reasons, but that's fodder for a different video probably. So like I said, much love and more to come. Thank you.